Okay, so I'm Missy, and I am going to be showing you a demonstration on how to do gesture drawings. So that this is kind of the first thing that you will be doing in art class. And you should have two pencils to be working with. Specifically for gesture drawing, we're not going to be using the ebony pencil. So as you can see, it's really soft, and you can kind of blend it out a little bit. And it's not necessary for gesture drawing, so I am just going to be using a regular 2B pencil for the gesture drawing. And to kind of explain and define gesture drawing, the best way that I can explain it is just gathering and drawing the basic shape of an object. So then you can kind of work from there once you get more advanced in your drawing. So what I am going to be drawing is a paint tub, and I thought that would be a good kind of first start for the gesture drawing. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to kind of hold my pencil up pretty high, so you know I don't want that much control over my drawing, so I'm going to hold it up a little higher so I'm not putting as much pressure on the paper. And when I'm doing gesture drawings, I don't really want to pick up my pencil a lot. I will pick it up sometimes, but I do want to kind of keep it on the paper. And then I'm kind of just moving in motions and continuing drawing on the paper. And once I kind of start to see the shape that I want, I will outline it a little bit darker, okay? So then I just continue on doing my gesture drawing. And with gesture drawings, you don't need to get super detailed. So I'm not going to go in and add a whole bunch of, shading or blending. That is stuff that I want to do later. So again, I'm not trying to be perfect with this. I am just trying to get an overall basic shape that I want, and then eventually I will go in and add more detail. I'm just trying to plan out where things are, and as you can see, it's not perfect, but I really don't need to go in and erase anything yet. Like, I can already tell this should be longer, maybe a little bit skinnier, so I'm just going to go back over that and kind of redefine some of those spots. But you don't want to take too much time on this. Just get the basic shape, and then once you're happy with it, you can kind of be done with your gesture drawing. So things that I want to point out is I'm not erasing anything. I'm being very loose with how I'm drawing, which is why I'm holding the pencil up here. And I'm not trying to be perfect. I just want to gather the overall shape of my object, so that eventually I can go in and start getting more precise and adding those values and things like that. But for now, that's all I'm going to have you do. So working off of my gesture drawing, I now want to start to kind of clean things up a little bit and get my drawing to be a little bit more accurate. So I want to talk about negative space, and specifically near the handle. So when I look at the paint tub, I can see where there is a big gap of space that isn't the bottle. So it's the space that is like essentially around the bottle. And when I look at my drawing, I can see that it's much smaller. So this is where I'm going to use negative space to kind of correct my bottle, specifically the handle. And for this, I'm actually going to use the ebony pencil because I kind of want it to be a little bit darker, and I want to see where I've made my corrections. So from here, I'm going to kind of just make that shape that I see that is the negative space. And I'm going to kind of go a little bit darker there. And so I've just drawn the space. And now I'm kind of going back over and redefining the line of the handle. And is there really anything else I need to say? Okay, so now I've made that correction, and I think that looks better than it was. So that is how you can use negative space to make corrections to your gesture drawing.
Now that we've worked on gesture, we're going to talk about contour. A contour drawing shows the form of the object without being maybe as sketchy as the gesture drawing. What I'm focusing on here is still the shape and outline of the object and any major features. The contour drawing is going to be continuous. So once I draw the top of this mug where I am looking into it, I'm going to make an iterative drawing, which means I'll go make multiple passes until I get the shape of that rim. And then without lifting my pencil, I'm going to move on to the outer portion. And I want to try to make longer strokes with the pencil, trying to get more of the object drawn per line rather than little tiny scratches. I can draw right through my other lines, then go back and pick out certain parts to focus on. If I'm doing something called a blind contour drawing, I'm not going to look at what I'm actually drawing on the paper, and I'll spend the entire time looking at the object. What we're focusing on right now is focusing on spending most of your time looking at the object. I can use the negative space help that we talked about previously, and I should end up with something that has continuous lines throughout it. Now that we've done some gesture drawing, we're going to talk about sight lining and proportion. To start this topic, I'm going to begin by doing a quick gesture of the paint roller over to my left, and then I'm going to go into what sight lining is, and I'll give you my point of view to show you how I'm using my pencil to correct angles in something that is a little bit more linear than the paint bottle. Okay, so at this point, I have a gesture that's kind of loosely drawn of the paint roller. From my point of view, it is leaning away from me, so we call that foreshortening when it's going back in space. Right now, what I'm going to do is take my pencil in my hand. I'm going to line it up, closing one of my eyes, and line it up with the object. And then I'm going to go back to my drawing that's laid in front of me on the easel, and I'm going to compare it to the angle that's in my drawing. As I do this, I'm going to start to be able to correct things, like straightening this out and making it at slightly more of an angle, and even things that are laying flat on the table, because of the angle that this is laid out, it's going to change my drawing just a little bit. Because I know the top and bottom are parallel, I don't have to check the bottom. It's going to be parallel in my drawing as well. Then I can check, this has all sorts of right angles, 90-degree angles. I can check at what angle those are at in my drawing too. This becomes a little bit more angled. Then I can darken my drawing as I've got my corrected lines. It takes a right angle, which means that this will need to come up. I should be able to compare that back with my handle. When I do my last angle here that takes it back to the handle, now I've got something that's more like what I originally had sketched. So now I've corrected the angle at which this is leading back to the roller part. The next parts would be to go in, if this is going to be a finished drawing, and finish out the bars that go across. The last thing I can do at the handle to correct it is look at these smaller angles. Because of the foreshortening, and we'll talk about this more when we get to perspective, even though the width of the handle is the same throughout, it's a little bit wider, appears a little bit wider towards the bottom, the part that's closest to me. Sightlining is helpful if I'm trying to really get the proportion, the relationship of this size to this, the relationship of this angle to this portion, if I'm trying to get that to be really accurate. For things that are mechanical, sightlining is really helpful, but it can also be used in a lot of different drawings.